The Florida Gators men's track program won the national championship again in 2023. And for those keeping score at home, that is their 6th championship since the year 2012. I used to get upset at how many they've actually won, but now I know that their dominance is an upgrade from the world we used to live in. Cause Florida won 6 out of 11 championships, but never completed a three-peat. But before them, Texas A&M won 3 championships in a row. But I'm sure you still don't get it yet, cause right before Texas A&M, Florida State had their own three-peat. And 3 years before that, Arkansas did the same thing, winning 3 straight titles. College track and field is so predictable that we might as well be watching a Fast and Furious movie. And that is because the scoring system for the NCAA championship is entirely broken. The only way to fix it is to change it. And I know exactly how to get it done. Because at the rate that we're going, the national title competition might as well be renamed a second chance do-over meet for the entire SEC conference. Track and field in college is so broken because most people don't even know where things went wrong. The Florida Gators are a track and field powerhouse for both the men's and the women's sides. While the men were winning a national championship in 2023, the women finished as the runner-up. But that is only a disappointment because the women of Florida won the national championship in 2022. But calling either of those teams a powerhouse is actually pretty misleading because neither of them won a conference championship this season. In fact, the men of Florida didn't even finish in the top 5 at the SEC championship meet. And the team that beat them to win it all mollywopped them. They had 149 points to Florida's 70. I can't think of a sport where that score is acceptable. But Florida won the NCAAs and was one of 5 men's teams from the SEC and 6 on the women's side to finish in the top 10. This is only possible because the scoring system for collegiate track and field literally changes from meet to meet. Allow me to explain. College track and field has always been a team sport, where every single team competes as a member of a conference, just like they do in football or basketball. That also means that they compete for a conference championship. That's indoors and outdoors. And at the outdoor conference meet, there's normally 19 individual events, not including the decathlon or any of the relays. Teams enter the athletes on their roster into those 19 events, and whichever team scores the most points wins the meet. So to win a conference title, a college coach actually has to recruit a full roster of talented athletes and then select 32 of them to actually show up and compete to score points in that conference championship. This is the real reason why track and field is actually a team sport. And all the other regular season meets that people go to, the Texas relays, Florida relays, opens, invitationals, doesn't really matter. All of them are basically tune-up meets to prepare the athletes and the team to put up points at the conference meet. As a former D1 sprinter, I believe that competing at a conference championship meet is by far the most fun you'll ever have in track and field. The only problem is that the scoring system I just described, once again, only really applies to the conference meet. Florida keeps winning national championships because they figured out how to hack the system. Coach Mike Holloway knows that he needs to have national qualifying athletes if he wants to win a national championship meet. Because the NCAA championship meet isn't really a team championship at all. It's just a competition with the top 24 athletes in every single event lined up to compete against each other. Technically, they're wearing team uniforms, and we're even going to tally up points and crown a champion. But this is not a team title, because most of the team didn't even compete. That would never happen in football or basketball. The Florida Gators only needed to have a handful of athletes who would finish in the top 8 in the nation in their individual events to score points at the national meet and compete for the title. And they left 80% of their roster back at home. The very same athletes who didn't even get close to winning a conference title. I'm willing to bet that when Florida is recruiting, along with most of the teams competing for the national title, they're not even trying to win a conference championship, and the results prove it. Those coaches, the ones in the top 5, just want to find at least 2 kids on their team who are Olympic caliber athletes. They would be willing to trade at least 5 state champions for one of them, because that kid can actually win the national meet, and that's 10 points for every event they do it in. The real reason why there are no upsets in college track and field is because we don't let the teams actually face off to determine who has the best one. We don't give them a chance. If we want to do the NCAA championship this way, that's fine. Just call it what it actually is, an individual NCAA championship meet. The only way to fix college track and field and crown a legitimate national champion is to switch to a system where we actually invite teams to compete and not just individual athletes. And the funny thing is, we already have everything that we would need to actually go and do it. March Madness is the greatest event in college sports because it invites teams from different conferences to face off against each other 5 on 5 to determine who's the best, and then they knock each other out till we have one team left standing. Just do the same thing in track and field with a few adjustments. So here is how we find the best teams. It ain't rocket science. We use the rankings that we actually have, because most people didn't know we already ranked the teams anyway. Division I track and field actually keeps a report of regional team rankings for 9 regions across the nation. Most people didn't even know, because we literally don't use those rankings for anything other than bragging rights. Those rankings qualify you right now for nothing. But the way the rankings are made is they face off the teams in a scoring system across all of the national event list. Florida's men finished 2nd in the regular season in the NCAA's South Regional Rankings, behind the University of Tennessee, who actually finished 3rd at the SEC Championship meet. When you think about it, it actually makes sense, because they lost to 2 teams who were from another region, the South Central, Arkansas and LSU, who were number 1 and number 3 in their region. To win a national title, you should have to survive 3 rounds of competition to crown yourself a champion. The current system we're using involves 2 rounds, but this is a bootleg individual championship, so let's be honest, it's just one more meet. The first round is a regional round, where every team that wins a conference championship, all 30 of them, get an automatic bid just like they do in March Madness. Using this system, of all the teams that were in the top 10 on the men's side, only Arkansas and Washington would have gotten automatic bids to the first round. Teams like Arizona State, who finished 7th at the Pac-12 championships and 7th in their region, they would now be on the bubble. Sounds a whole lot like March Madness, don't it? The remaining selections are at large bids, and it's gonna fluctuate just like it does in March Madness. That's why they call it the bubble. So if 3 teams in the region are conference champions, only 5 more teams can get in to the regional first round meet. The next 5 teams with the highest regional rankings would get in, and that's it. Everyone else, I'm sorry, you didn't make the cut. And for any team that doesn't make the first round, but it still proved itself to be pretty good, they can go to some track and field version of the NIT. If it's good enough for basketball, it's good enough for track. Those regional first round meets will be scored just like the conference meets, with 9 regions and 8 teams in each. only 72 teams will make it to the first round, but we're only taking the top 4 to the national semifinal in each region. The national semifinal will be conducted just like we do it already in the East and the West region, but instead of taking just the top athletes, we're gonna take the best teams. Of the 36 teams left on the bracket, only 8 of them in the East and the West, that's 16 teams in total, are coming to the national championship meet. If we do this on the men's and women's sides, we'll finally get to find out who the actual best team is in collegiate track and field. Cause the entire team will actually face off long enough to prove it. The truth is, most of the small schools might get eliminated in the first round anyway, just like what happens in March Madness. But at least they get a chance to prove themselves. And remember, upsets actually happen. March Madness proves it time and time again, regardless of whether you've heard of schools like Fairleigh Dickinson. So the Florida Gators are a track and field team, but they basically cheated the system by running an Olympic development program disguised as a collegiate track program. Half of all the points they scored at the NCAA championship meet came from the 4x4 and the open 400. You can't make this stuff up, cause by having 3 finalists in the national championship 400 and then using those same guys on the 4x4, they scored 30 points at the national meet. If you throw in their 4x1 and the guys from it who scored in the 100 and the 200, that's already more than 80% of every single point they scored at the national championship. Track and field is actually a team sport, and most of the coaches around the country are asked to recruit like it is for 19 events. Thanks to the regional rankings, we actually know who the real best teams are. Nobody's ever asked the question long enough to pay attention. Well, I'm asking, cause competing for a conference championship is the most fun that any athlete is probably ever going to have in track and field. And there's absolutely no reason that the national championship meet shouldn't be just as fun for the athletes and for the fans. Track and field fans deserve to see it, cause the SEC conference is not all there is to collegiate track and field. And upsets are a real thing. They actually happen. March Madness is proof of that. I'm Coach Rob, and thank you so much for watching this video. And if you want to see more content like this, then please like and subscribe.